Hello and a very warm welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. My name is David Roth from WPP, and it's a pleasure to have you at the second of our three-part series in conjunction with Alibaba. This session is all about a deep Alibaba immersion, and there's no better group of people for today's session to give you just that. In today's session, we are going to hear from David Lloyd, the General Manager for the UK and the Netherlands and Nordics for Alibaba, as well as Zarina Kanji, who is the Lead Business Development Manager for Health and Wellness and also for Beverages for Tmall Global, who really does help brands understand how they can make the best of Tmall in terms of their approach to the China market. And then we are also going to hear from Benjamin, who is going to be talking to us from, I suppose, a practitioner's perspective, who is the head of China for Vitabiotics UK, the UK's #1 vitamin company. So we have a packed hour as we normally have. So without taking up any more time, I would like to hand over to our co-host of this series, David Lloyd from Alibaba. David, it's a great pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much, David, for inviting me and introducing me today. Thanks everybody for joining us. So I'm just going to share my screen. And I hope you can all now see my slides. So I only want to spend the next 20 minutes talking about two things. The first is to give you all an introduction to Alibaba if you don't know us very well, or if you do feel like you know us quite well already, to give you a heightened understanding of where we come from and what we do. The second thing I want to talk about is modern China and Chinese consumers. And so to that end, I want to show a quick video about modern China today. So you can see, for those of you who have not visited China before, that it is a remarkably advanced digital economy, and that the consumers in China are increasingly digitally enabled. And Alibaba Group plays a really important role in those consumers' digital lives. And so I wanted to spend a bit of time at the start of this presentation talking about, well, how did we... Talking about how did we get to that point, and how did Alibaba become so important in the lives of those consumers? And to do that, I just have to first take you back 21 years. So we are a 21-year-old business founded, as you can see from this picture, in a flat in Hangzhou in the east of China. So the guy standing up here, who many of you may know, is Jack Ma, our founder. And here he is addressing the rest of the founding members of Alibaba Group in that flat in Hangzhou. And the company was founded on a relatively straightforward insight, which was that there were plenty of manufacturers, large and small, in and around Hangzhou. And in fact, there were plenty of manufacturers all across China. But in the pre-internet and in the early internet world, it was very difficult for those manufacturers to actually speak to businesses all over the world. It was very difficult for them to connect to the companies who might become their customers. And so what Jack did was to say, well, let's create a business using the power of the internet, which makes it easy to do business anywhere. And at that point, what he meant was, how do we use the internet to connect buyers from all over the world to vendors, to manufacturers, to sellers in China? But what's emerged over the next 21 years is a business that's much more complex. And we've gone from being a company that really helps other businesses to buy from China to continuing to do that while also helping businesses from all over the world to sell to China, to sell to Chinese consumers, and increasingly to sell all over the world. And what that's done is to create numbers like these, where you have a company which today serves 960 million annual consumers, which facilitates over $1 trillion of trade on its platforms every year. And which on our last Singles Day, Double 11, November the 11th, which is our big promotional day each year, served over $38 billion in GMV. And the one thing I would want you to remember when you look at these numbers is that this is not our revenue. $1 trillion a year or $38 billion in a day, which are really significant volumes of revenue. They're not Alibaba Group's revenue, but they're actually the revenue of our customers and of all of the millions of businesses and individuals who sell on our platforms. So how do we deliver numbers like that? The businesses that you really need to know about, the businesses that can really tell you how we deliver those numbers, are these. These are our core commerce businesses, mostly in China, but in fact, with companies like AliExpress all over the world, with businesses like Lazada, which is the #1 e-commerce player across Southeast Asia, connecting to consumers across those markets as well. But in China, the really important businesses to know about for e-commerce are Taobao, Tmall, and Tmall Global. And those businesses, for those of you who don't know, really represent the bulk of e-commerce in China. China is over 50% today of the world's e-commerce, and these three sites and apps connect to Chinese consumers on a daily basis, bringing them the products they want and the brands they want from all over the world. Now, we don't have always great comparisons here in the UK and in Europe for those businesses. So the way I tend to think about them is like this. Taobao is like an online version of the biggest market that you can possibly imagine, where if you can imagine any product, any service from millions of sellers, you can get it there on Taobao. Tmall is like the world's biggest shopping mall, but put online. So it's ever expanding. There are hundreds of thousands of brands being sold on there, thousands of businesses from all over Europe opening stores within Tmall and connecting to hundreds of millions of Chinese consumers. And what this tells you is perhaps the biggest difference, I would say, between e-commerce here in the UK and Europe and in China. Whereas here in Europe, if I want to buy something from a brand or buy something from a retailer, I will probably go to that brand or retailer's own website. In China, I'm most likely to go to Taobao or Tmall and try and find the goods there. And therefore, great British brands like Burberry and Dyson and hundreds more besides open up stores on Tmall because that's the most effective and the best way to connect to consumers in China. And all of these businesses offer platforms for millions of sellers all over the world, from the biggest brands in the world to tiny SMEs and individual sellers, to connect with consumers and other businesses all across the globe. So we have these, really significant commerce businesses which are making it easy to shop and making it easy to sell. But what we've also developed is a full ecosystem that goes well beyond shopping. So you can see here some of the sites I just mentioned, but if you look at the top middle of this slide, you can also see we've developed a really important media and entertainment business with companies like Alibaba Pictures, which produced several Oscar-winning movies, like UC Browser, incredibly popular web browser across Asia, or Youku, a home of video in China with user-generated content alongside really high-quality brand content and TV-like shows. So incredible media and entertainment properties as well for users across China and increasingly around the world as well. If you then look on the right-hand side, we have local services, helping people to book hotels and flights via Fliggy, to get a coffee or their meal delivered via Ele.me. Or if you look at the blue hippo symbol there, helping them to shop in the grocery store of the future, which is Fresh Hippo or Hema. To give you an example, for those of you who don't know how Fresh Hippo works, we didn't have any of these stores just a few years ago. Now we have hundreds of these across China, and they are selling incredibly high quality, fresh produce to Chinese consumers in brand new supermarket environments. And yes, you can go into the store, just like I might here in London, go into a store and shop, and maybe I might scan products as I put them in my basket and take them away. But what you can also do is do that exact same shop from home. And our service is so efficient and so futuristic that actually, if you were living near a Hema store, a Fresh Hippo store in China, and you'd started your shop on the app at the start of this webinar when David Roth started speaking, you could potentially get that shopping delivered to you by the end of the webinar. So within 1 hour, as long as you live just within a few kilometers of the store. So we're really offering not just e-commerce, but entertainment and plenty of local services to Chinese consumers. And powering all of this is an infrastructure we've built up over the last 21 years, which includes payments via Alipay, logistics with Xianyao, marketing and data services via Alimama, and then Alibaba Cloud. And to touch on each of those really briefly, so cloud, this is the leading cloud provider across Asia. It is an infrastructure we built, which we actually serve most of our products across now today. And why do we have to do that? Why do we build such a robust infrastructure like Alibaba Cloud? Well, because at our peak on Double 11, we're processing around about 500,000 transactions a second. And so we need that robust infrastructure. We need that kind of service to make sure that we're able to serve all of the customers who are across our platforms, and then increasingly sharing that service with other businesses besides. With Alimama, we want to take advantage of the extreme interaction we have on our platform, the way people come to us several times a day to look for products, yes, but also to share products with friends, to watch content. And we want to make sure that we help businesses like yours build your brands on the platform. Cainiao, our logistics network, connects consumers across China. We'll deliver tens of millions of packages every day across China. But increasingly as well, Cainiao is connecting businesses and consumers all across the globe. So we're building logistics hubs all over the world to make it as easy as possible to get goods from the UK, from around Europe into China, and vice versa at real speed. And then finally, Alipay. Alipay, yes, is a leading payment provider, serving payments online and offline, but it's much, much more besides. It offers financial services to consumers and to SMEs in China, but it's also really a lifestyle app. And to give you the example from my personal experience, when I go to China, the first app I open when I get off the plane is Alipay, not because I want to buy something normally, because I can use Alipay to order a taxi to take me from the airport to my hotel. When I get to the hotel, I can use Alipay to check in. And then as I live my life day to day in China, I'm really using Alipay to navigate around, to pay for items on the go. And it really is much more than just a payment app. So hopefully on this slide, which I probably could spend about 2 hours over, but I've tried to do in about 5 minutes, what you can see is that we're much, much more than just an e-commerce business. We're really a tech business, which plays an intimate role in the daily lives of Chinese consumers, but is also facilitating trade for businesses and consumers globally. So having talked about Alibaba and hopefully given you a bit of an increased understanding, of who we are, where we come from, and what we do, I want to talk a bit now about the Chinese consumer. And before I begin, I just want to quickly play you a very, very short video, which shows you how Shanghai has developed over the last 25 or 30 years. So you can see, right, it's a pretty radical development of the Shanghai skyline. It's a pretty extraordinary change that's taken place since the early 90s. If you think about the city where you live today, perhaps the city where you're from, it's unlikely it's seen that kind of development. But that skyline and what you saw on that video just now is really representative of how people's lives have changed in China. When Alibaba was founded, probably internet penetration was only 1 or 2% in China. Today, it's comfortably the world's biggest digital market. And consumers have changed with that shift to digital and with that development. So that it's become the world's biggest retail market. It's becoming the world's biggest consumer market. You have a young population, which lives a lot of its life online and which is looking for products and goods from all over the world, right? And is really, really savvy and is really keen to find out more about businesses like yours, products like yours from all over the world. And they look like this. So this is really good news for any of you who are under 40 on this webinar. We define you as young. And therefore, that means that 85% of our audience is young, right? So 85% of our audience across Alibaba platforms in China is under the age of 40. Which is a pretty extraordinary thing to imagine. That means that you're talking about hundreds of millions of millennials, of digital natives who live their lives online, who live their lives on their smartphones, connecting on Alibaba, and who have grown up shopping online actually primarily. And so whereas many of us, again, from the UK or from Europe may have grown up shopping offline and gradually transitioned to offline, many of these guys actually grew up pretty much shopping online, and they expect to be able to find everything online and live a lot of their lives on their smartphones. And when I talk about living a lot of their lives on their smartphones, I mean this. I mean that, even as business all over the world has shifted to digital and then has shifted from laptop to smartphone, consumers in China are already pretty much only on their smartphones. Over 90% of transactions on our platforms are taking place via mobile. But if I want you to remember one thing, and really only one thing today about those consumers and about our platform, and what it explains to you about the difference between how they live their lives online and shop online versus perhaps how people in Europe live their lives and shop online, it's this. It's that our average user comes to us 8 times every day. They're launching that Taobao app 8 times every single day. That's 56 times a week. And when they launch that app, they're on average, just on average, spending over 25 minutes a day with us. And that's really important to understand because it tells you there's a big difference in terms of how people are shopping online, in terms of how people are living their lives online in China versus how many of us are doing here in the UK and in Europe. Because when I think about my own shopping behavior, right, and I would say that I shop online a lot, possibly too much, I would be shocked to find out that I went to my favorite e-commerce website 8 times a day or spend nearly half an hour a day there. It's incredibly unlikely that any of you on the call do that, even with the shopping app that you use most often. But for consumers in China, it's normal, right? They're going to Taobao, they're going to Tmall, yes, for shopping, but also for entertainment. They're spending huge amounts of time there, and they want to learn more about brands. They want to learn more about your products. And so what we do our best to do is to help you and help businesses all over the world connect to those consumers in the best way possible. So I hope that that's given you a really good feel for Alibaba. I hope as well it's given you a good feel for just how quickly China is developing and how you can connect to Chinese consumers. And what I'm going to do now is hand over to Zarina, who's going to take you through the rest of this presentation. Zarina, you should now have control.
Thank you. Okay, so hi everybody. So I think now you have a really good idea of our history, our ecosystem, and the Chinese consumer. So let's talk a bit about the opportunities available to international brands and how you can work with us. So today we'll focus on Tmall Global, which is the largest B2C cross-border e-commerce platform in China. And it's the home of international brands. More than 80% of brands on Tmall Global make their China debut on the platform. And now we have over 25,000 of those international brands from almost 100 different countries, selling in over 5,000 different categories. So what is cross-border e-commerce? So the original Tmall model helped brands who were already established in China to sell to consumers. And Tmall Global was set up 6 years ago to make it easier for foreign brands to sell to consumers on the ground in China, and also to serve the increasing demand of those consumers to find brands that they couldn't find at home. So Tmall Global enables you as an international brand to sell as you do in your home country. You use your legal entity, your bank account, your trademarks, your packaging and your labeling, just as you would sell in your home country. And you use bonded warehouses in duty-free trade zones or warehouses outside of China in order to move the goods to the end consumer. So there are, in fact, 2 main ways that you are able to sell on Tmall Global as an international brand. The first model is the flagship store model. And this is the most common model and it's very well established. So what you will build is a website or an app page that looks and feels just like your website does at home. And it's a place for branding, marketing, transacting and interacting with customers. You can introduce new products, as well as focus in on your best sellers, or what we call hero SKUs. And it's a place to build a high degree of consumer trust. You'll work with a partner. So you will work either with a distributor through whom you would sell goods to them and they would operate your store and sell B2C to the consumer, or you would work with a trade partner who effectively would be your e-commerce team on the ground in China. So both models of those partners will help you to forecast sales, analyze data, marketing and campaigns on the platform and outside of our platform, manage logistics, and really do the day-to-day operations of your store. So this is the first model. And then the newer model that we have is Tmall Overseas Fulfillment, or TOF as we call it. It's a light touch, low cost model to start in China. It works on consignment, so you'll retain ownership of the stock. You simply place it into a European warehouse. You plug into our system, into our platform using an API, and we will support you with localization of the content. So you'll then list on our TOF channel. And TOF is a channel within the Tmall Global channel on the Tmall app. So consumers will come to TOF channel to look for newness. So it's a really great place to put a couple of products from your range to try and test the market in China and see how the consumer reacts to it. So let's now have a little look at a few Tmall Global flagship stores. I've just chosen 3 examples here of brands that I work with. Firstly, we've got Whittard on the left-hand side. Whittard of Chelsea, one of the most famous tea brands in the UK. Interestingly, when they launched with us 5 years ago, they found that what they expected to be a bestseller, tea, was in fact not the bestseller in China. When they looked at their Tmall data, they actually found that hot chocolate was something that appealed to the Chinese consumer more. Secondly, we've got Smooth Skin, a brand I'd not heard of 2 years ago when I joined the business. It's a Welsh IPL hair removal brand, which launched on Tmall in 2017. And Smooth Skin have seen their sales increase 35 times in the first 2 years, as they tapped into the demand for at-home beauty devices. And then finally, Vitabiotics started with us 5 years ago as well, and they now have 2 stores on Tmall Global. And Benji will talk a little bit more in a moment about his journey. So with the China e-commerce landscape growing as it is, and against this backdrop of COVID-19 and the pandemic, what we've seen are increases in sales of lots of different categories, at-home beauty devices, home cooking appliances, health supplements, and new areas such as plant milk have all grown in popularity over the last few months. So there are huge opportunities for brands in China, and we at Alibaba are helping to drive that growth across lots of brands into the market. And where the pandemic has really only boosted demand for international products into the world's largest retail market, where sales are projected this year to exceed $5 trillion in China. And we've seen that ourselves with the taste for imported goods growing, with the value of imports on Tmall Global growing at 40% year on year in June. So let me, without further ado, introduce Benji Lam, Director of China at Vitabiotics, a Tmall Global customer, to talk to us about his experience in the market. So Benji, would you like to introduce yourselves as we just stop our screen share there?
Hello.
Hi, Benji.
Sorry about the slight delay there.
That's okay. So we're really excited to have you here today. Would you like to introduce yourself a moment to us?
Of course, yeah. Firstly, thanks so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm really humbled to be here alongside yourself, David Lloyd, and of course, David Roth. So I'm Benji Lam. I'm Director of China at Vitabiotics. Vitabiotics is the UK's #1 vitamins company, sold in over 50 countries. And we've built leading brands like Well Woman, Well Man, Pregnacare, Perfectal, Ferroglobin, etc. We've been active in China for over 5 years, launching and entering the market through Alibaba on Tmall Global. In terms of my background, I lived and worked in China for 4 years, initially working as an English teacher, and then working in e-commerce and a number of marketing agencies before joining Vitabiotics to manage our China operations. I mean, I know from experience when I was diving into China, I encountered a lot of theory. So outside of that kind of conceptual understanding, I hope through this Q&A we can provide a practical, pragmatic series of insights and that you can apply those directly to your own operations.
Fantastic. So we've got 3 core topics to cover today. So let's dive in. The first one I'd like to talk about is realigning to China. Can you share some information about how you ensure your organisation buys into a China strategy and commits the necessary resources to succeed in the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, going back to the title of the topic for today, i.e. rapid immersion, we're looking at, just as a top line overview, a dedicated team. I feel like the head of the company needs to be in China. The dedicated position needs to be focused on China. I feel like there needs to be a senior level prioritization of the China market. And I feel that companies need to focus on how they adapt their own company culture, both in terms of localized demand and localized speed, which we'll go on to in a second. But I know for me personally, the first priority was shifting company culture. So it sounds like an obvious statement, but China requiring significant resource internally. So whether that resource be supply, forecasting, localization in terms of different product lines, marketing investment, or as I've mentioned a second ago, senior level engagement with the market. And I feel that company culture has to adapt in terms of speed. So what I mean by speed is being reactive to local market demands. So whether that's speed of forecasting, supply, opportunities arise quickly and need to be seized quickly. For example, as we're going to go on to talk about, live streaming and influencer to demand. And from my experience, to be honest, Alibaba's category managers can be frustrated if us as brands don't work to the timelines, and whether that be for live streams, goods in warehouse, new product launch, etc. So I know, personally at Vitabiotics, we've really prioritized China as an export market. We're seeing stable growth in COVID-19, and we're seeing increasing demand across multiple categories. For example, we have 2 dedicated stores now, one in the mother-baby category, one in the healthcare category. And the second main priority for me was actually building a strong relationship with Alibaba. So whether that be with category managers directly, with the global team, with London HQ, we've had a lot of advice, we've had a lot of support in terms of new product launches, media buying, live stream opportunities, sales targets, actual digging into our store data. And tapping into events like this and the educational resources that Ali provide as well.
Brilliant. So I know that you now have a team on the ground in China, but 5 years ago when you started, you didn't. And lots of other brands don't when they enter either. Lots of brands continue not to. So can you just talk to us about, at the start, how did you manage your Tmall store?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, honestly, there was a real ease of entry with Alibaba Global and through our trade partner. So we entered through China with a Tmall Global Flagship store, aligned with an Alibaba approved third party. So they worked on the store management, and then we outsourced different parts of the launch to a series of agencies. We did that years 1 to 4, and we initially focused on our Pregnacare brand, being a leading hero in the UK, and the mother-baby sector and the category being so strong at the time of our point of entry. That method worked well for us. We were able to compartmentalize, we were able to test. Different media and marketing agencies were quite bespoke. We could plug in different APIs and third-party analytics. And because we were focusing primarily on mother-baby, we had a limited number of products initially. And in that context, we found outsourcing to agency worked well. I mean, I don't think you necessarily need to take like an under one roof approach to China. It's good, from my experience anyway, to cherry pick agencies and bespoke partners, and that gives you an initial sense of flexibility. But obviously there's not a one size fits all approach, but certainly for us that worked really well. And with the growth of our portfolio, we then opened a second store in the healthcare category and built an in-house team consisting of a marketing manager, designer, a video guy, assistant marketing, and worked on a series of intern programs and built that team in Chengdu. So obviously at that point, it was important for us as we moved into multiple categories and expanded our portfolio to build the team. But at point of entry, the in-house team wasn't required, in my opinion.
Great. So as you said, you've moved into a different category, and health has become more of a focus in China. There's a government initiative, Healthy China 2030, which is encouraging the nation to become healthier across 14 different strains, from healthy eating to stopping smoking to becoming more active. And on Tmall Global, we have 71% of our health supplement buyers who are actually under the age of 40. They act very preventatively rather than reactively towards their health, don't they? So this was a perfect opportunity for you. It sort of aligned nicely to move from having just your mother and baby store to opening a second store in healthcare. So can you talk to us about how you work across the different categories and with the different managers?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Launched the healthcare store this year. We used a separate trade partner for this, again, focusing on specialism, and we were looking at case studies actually through Alibaba by category. The messaging is so different between the stores. For our mother baby brands, we even have a Chinese adaptive brand name, Vitabiotics, which specifically refers to mother baby products. So by working cross category, we're able to compartmentalize. We were looking at different keyword bidding in terms of indexing and ranking products. And ultimately, we were able to plug in to separate category manager support networks. We were utilizing Brand Data Bank, which is Tmall store analytics across both those categories for consumer profiling, demographics, and we were feeding all the data from both stores to support the multi-brand approach, basically. And those relationships with category managers, in my opinion, have proved to be pivotal. When we launched that HC healthcare store, we were featured as part of the brand incubation camp for Tmall Global's Double 11 launch. And we've gone on to work closely with those multiple category managers. And it's just important to be able to tap into those infrastructures. Like, we've had initial traction on very specific SKUs. For example, the success of our Vision Ace product, which is eye care lutein. In China, we focus on combating the effects of extensive screen time. Very apt, as you and David both mentioned, in terms of millennial Chinese consumers versus the older market in the UK. And that's fascinating for us in terms of consumer life cycle, focus on retention, and potentially consumers for a lifetime.
Yeah, it always helps to sort of stop and rethink how your brand could work in China versus how it does in your home country. It's not, like I spoke about Wittard earlier, it's not always as you expect it to be. So next, let's move on to our second topic. It's always top of the mind for brands when they start talking to me is logistics. So really simple terms, can you explain how do Vitabiotics get stock from London to China?
Yeah, of course. So the product leaves our London warehouse either by air or sea to Shanghai. From Shanghai, it then goes overland to Hangzhou and enters our bonded warehouse in Hangzhou. As you mentioned, in the bonded warehouse, we're exempt from paying tax and duty.
And that's paid by the end consumer, isn't it? It's very clearly stated on the Tmall website.
Correct. In terms of how we split the shipment, so air, we're looking at, for example, if we're launching a new store, we need that flexibility. We need new SKU tests, new product testing. We might have variable demand from live streamers. For example, a minimum number of units, i.e. 5,000, is required to launch a new product with a live streamer. So we use air for quick input of product, basically. The bulk of our product is going by sea, bulk shipping. After 4 months of our healthcare store being live, we're able to do the bulk of that by sea, and our mother baby store is all by sea because we've established the volumes. We do also have some surplus warehousing through third parties, particularly in COVID-19. We felt that with supply chains being affected, longer lead times, disruption in transit, we thought it was important to hold a surplus as well.
Great. And next, I want to go a bit more in detail about logistics and talk about peaks. Obviously, we've got Double 11 Singles Day coming up next month on the 11th of November. It's the big, like David said, it's the biggest shopping festival of the year. And it's not the only sales peak in China. Often you have to deal with these. So how do you plan for such sales peaks during shopping festivals or live streams?
Yeah, that's another great question. I mean, it's worth noting here actually that the product's going by consignment to Tmall. So I view that as a really positive thing. It gives us flexibility in testing lines, volumes that perhaps we wouldn't have with wholesale. And then wholesale demand has typically followed the demand that we've witnessed on our Tmall flagship store. By consignment, I mean we receive the value from the unit once the product is sold. But in terms of Double 11, we plan 2 quarters in advance, and we would do the same for 618, a big sales festival in June. And again, working with category managers to forecast on our stock planning, prioritizing sea shipments, considering the costs at the moment as well. You could be looking at like 5 to 6 weeks at sea, 2 weeks clearance. So you could be looking at 8 weeks plus internal lead time. So planning is everything. And then how do we plug that into creatives, banner design, new social content? What competitions are we running? Are we running exclusive product price offers? It's a really intense but really fun time of the year, Double 11 at 618 as well. I really enjoy it. And the team really has to run as a unit to get that over the line.
Marvelous. So a really big part of Double 11 and Singles Day is social. So next, let's go on to talking about navigating social in China. It's very different from here in the West, isn't it? And you really need to ensure that you're creating relevant local content for China. So again, let's start simply. Can you explain what the key differences are between the power of social in China versus the West?
It's a very omnipresent kind of ecosystem, right? Like it's a unique landscape, and for the digital user, there really is a sense of total immersion. We're present on most major channels, so that being Weibo, literally meaning microblog, WeChat or Weixin, which is article long form HTML5 based content. Little Red Book, which is more like an Instagram visual-led shopping experience. And Douyin, China's TikTok original, more short form video content. And you know, the benefit of having an in-house team at this point is that we can plug that team into all those different channels and repurpose content as we need to across our own mini, albeit a lot smaller than Alibaba's ecosystem, our own mini ecosystem and our own touch points.
So what does social content look like in China for Vitabiotics?
Well, we repurpose a lot of content. So we're a premium, we market ourselves as a premium overseas brand. We felt we needed to build that. We think that consumers on Tmall Global expect a clear sense of a national identity from an overseas brand. So we focus primarily on British models, British families. We've kind of elevated and dialed up the Britishness, as it were, in terms of a localization strategy for China. But we've done some kind of fusion work as well, like cross-cultural fusion content, where we took iconic British scenes and we had kind of Chinese hand-drawn design, like Chinese painting style. And we'd kind of put Chinese travelers in these different iconic British scenes. And we did it as a postcard from Vitabiotics. And then you could actually comment and engage, and you could receive the postcard directly with unique messaging and offers. But on the whole, we have kept it really kind of clear British identity. And in terms of our collaborations with Chinese, when we feature Chinese, it's usually as a third party recommending the product rather than being in the shoots and visuals for the brand itself.
Brilliant. So you spoke there a little bit about influencers and brand ambassadors. In China, we call them KOLs, key opinion leaders. So in the West, we might think of influencers like Kim Kardashian as being the face of your brand. And here in the UK, Vitabiotics have a really well-established brand ambassador network, don't you? But actually in China, you are in fact the Test Daily of China. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that and your live stream experience?
Yeah, you're right. In the UK, we have a very established ambassador network, as you say, David Gandy's Test Daily. And in China, it's very different because the live streamers on the whole are selecting the brands. So in that sense, it's more transient and they're after trending and hot products. But then to be honest, it's also very competitive. When we live stream, we tend to live stream on Taobao Live. It's integrated into the Ali ecosystem, and we're driving traffic direct to store from the live stream. what you're referring to in terms of me being a test daily is I popped up on a live stream with a streamer and a KOL we've collaborated with a few times called Jie. I'm just thinking how to put it. It's more like a kind of gamification of the shopping experience. Like, it's quite informal, it's quite light-hearted, akin to a shopping channel in that sense. And I would come in as director of China and directly communicate with consumers. And I had an opportunity to thank them for engaging with the brand and purchasing the product, and show my commitment to the market, and that our head was really in this. But it's, it is a very different experience. That, I mean, we were promoting Well Woman, so it's quite strange when you consider that I would pop in as a face of Well Woman, but it's not really deemed to be that. It's a real novelty that a brand representative who's actually operationally involved and usually would be behind the scenes actually appears on the live stream.
So I just want to go a little bit deeper still into live streams. Can you just describe a live stream for us? What is it? What happens? What does it look like? Yeah,
it's very much a kind of hot and trending products kind of environment. There's a lot of this idea of real notoriety and fame of products. It's what's hot, what's trending. But in terms of the actual experience, there's a lot of live comments, likes, emojis, buy now tags popping up, people taking screenshots when they've purchased, they're sharing those screenshots, they're commenting. Some people who might already use our product are sharing pictures of themselves with our product. It's very kind of high energy, immersive, exciting, but honestly also demanding. You often have a short notice and you have to typically commit 5,000 units when you as a brand are selected by a KOL. So this is what I mean about speed, adaptability, internal culture, and really prioritizing this process. But we'll typically do 5 to 7 times our daily rate from a live stream.
Yeah, so it's definitely a channel that any new brand that's thinking about entering China really needs to put live streaming into their strategy in order to be part of what's the buzzword right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the other key word there is retention. How are you bringing them into your brand ecosystem? What are your social media touch points? Where's the user data from purchasing, retargeting, analyzing that audience profile of specific streamers? And hopefully you'll find a good match with the right streamers because they're coming to you. You just need to find those clicks, really.
Great. So finally, could you summarize the top 3 reasons that Vitabiotics have been able to immerse so rapidly into China?
Oh gosh. Only 3. One, dedicated team. So as I said at the beginning, I think you need someone whose head is in China. I'm lucky, I've spent time studying the market and it's really benefited me, I think. And I've been lucky to spend quite a lot of my time in China. But yeah, I think it's so comprehensive. It's such a 360-degree market that you need someone's head to be in it 24/7. Then I think probably senior level prioritization of China as a market. I'm really humbled, to have the support of our CEO and vice president. And I think that process internally is really important. And then I'd come back to speed again and adaptation of company culture, whether that be new product launches, forecasting, adapting supply. I think that's really important. And yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being part of this. So team, priority and speed, your top 3 tips for rapidly immersing into China. Thank you so much, Benji, for sharing. And hopefully some of those insights have inspired some of you on the call today to take the first step to export to China with Alibaba. And those of us who are already in the market with us, we aim to have shared some really helpful insights and key support to enable you to develop your business further with us. I think now we'll hand back over to David Roth.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Benjamin, don't go away. I think I didn't give you a surname when I introduced you to start with. So Benjamin Lamb, I'll do that now. That was fascinating. I've got a couple of questions of myself, and also if you want to ask a question of anybody, if you want to send me a quick email, it's probably the fastest way of doing it, david.roth, R-O-T-H, @wpp.com. But the first one is for you, Benji, which is, we heard from David how many times the average young Chinese mobile consumer engages with the sites. What issues, both positive and negative, does that give you in terms of creating huge amounts of content to always find something new and engaging when consumers come and visit you?
I think there's 2 points there. There's the number of touch points or channels that you're working on, and then actual specific content tailored to those channels. So yeah, I think a cross-channel approach is vital. And then you obviously have to reformat, you have to repurpose. It is a challenge because you have to produce a lot, and it has to be interesting, it has to be engaging, it has to be snappy, and it has to have a really clear identity, and it has to be consistent. Relatively, even though we're reformatting across channel, it has to be consistent. I mean, ultimately, I think it's great. I like working in a market with so many touch points and such a regular sense of engagement with our customers and potential customers. But it does involve a certain degree of scaling your infrastructure to be able to provide that, whether that be the right bespoke agency for you or an in-house team. And for me, 5 years in, we found that plugging in an in-house team is the best way to do that.
The relationship between a brand, historically, the brand manager who controlled it, in a sense, well, I think that term of brand manager is way in history now, and then the concept of KOL, key opinion leaders. What relationship do you think brands need to have with the KOLs who either you work with or who talk about your product on their own without any connection with you?
What relationship you'd have directly with the KOL? I mean, yeah, I think as you just said, traditionally you'd maybe have a brand manager or some kind of intermediary working with the KOLs and the streamers. But I think it's good that the brand goes directly to them as well, and builds a rapport and connection with them as well. I mean, I know JJ asked me to go for a drink, which was, I don't know, I'll take him up on that. Like,
I think you should.
I'd be silly not to, but I think, but no, I think it's important that actually the brand builds direct connections with influencers that are potentially going to work with you over time. And when you're looking at such a transient market, if you can build long-term relationships, that's going to be vital for your identity and your growth in China, I think.
David Lloyd, you spoke a lot about the fast pace of change. How difficult is it for brands on Alibaba in their various different guises to understand what is changing, how it's changing? How do you help them with insights to guide this sort of very fast, I would categorize it as China speed?
It's a good question. And I don't think there's a perfect answer for somebody who's here on the other side of it, if you like, because what we do, if I think about how we engage a brand from start to finish, usually it'll be someone like me or perhaps somebody like Zarina who contacts them first, get to know them, we'll explain to them about how we work, give them some insights about the category they're in, Chinese consumers, introduce them to the platform. Over time, they'll build a relationship with the category teams in China, and those category teams can keep them up to speed. But in the end, very honestly, I think a very good piece of advice that Benji gave is you need some people on the ground in China, because things do move so quickly that unless you're somehow viscerally connected to the market and really there, then it's quite hard to keep up to speed. And the second issue I would say is that, working with us, we work at real speed. We want to, when an opportunity comes along, we want to share it with all of the brands we work with. But sharing that with those brands means asking them to respond really quickly to us. And so you need to be available to us. You need to be, if you're not in the same time zone, on the same kind of tech, speaking to us on Ding Talk or something like this, our internal tool, which we also work with customers on, which is a great messaging app for people to work with. But I do think in the end, you need people on the ground who really understand the market. I don't know, Zarina, would you build on that at all?
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. That sense of immersion into China is really developed through having the experience on the ground, through, you know, having all the sights and smells and being on top of what's going on in the market. I know myself and my Tmall colleagues across Europe, we do our best to keep up to date with trends and insights, and the benefit of having the category team is that they're able to share the real-time information of what is suddenly trending in China, and then we can react very quickly by going out and feeding that info to our brands or looking for new brands to export to the market, to keep on top of it. But yeah, immersion is really, I think, the best way of going about it and being on the ground.
A question we've had in for Benji, actually, which is, I know you touched on it, but how did you within the organisation manage to persuade, cajole, whatever the adjective is, your senior management team to believe that that massive, great big market in China was something that actually you could enter, and you could enter successfully?
Yes, great question. Data. I mean, the data does the talking in terms of the middle class numbers, the scale of, in our case, the VMS, the vitamin mineral supplement market.
But were they not really scared? I mean, when you look at some of those numbers and you think, wow, it's massive, but the investment, the time to actually crack a market like that is just too big for the resources that we have as a SME.
Yeah, no, I can understand. I think you know, it can be done in a step-by-step way, and I think it's about where in your strategy you're prioritizing. You know, like what are the channels you need to be on first, and where are you going to get the most tailored, specific help to get there in the most cost-effective way. So for us, honestly, it was through Tmall Global. It was through the Alibaba ecosystem. And that was our springboard. And there's so many resources out there and so many specialists that you can look to work with. But yeah, I appreciate it's daunting. There is a reality there. But also I think it's you know, having a local partner with local insight will give you the confidence in understanding the market better, and confidence begins with understanding, from my experience.
11/11, as both David and Zarina said, is fast approaching. First of all, a short question for you, Benji, and I want to hand it over to Zarina and maybe David to wrap up. Which is, when did you start preparing, planning for 2020 11/11?
So we typically would prepare 2 quarters in advance. So the preparation would take the form of forecasting, looking at our planning on different product lines, and then working out most effective shipping methods, and then looking into, as I said, different specific creatives for that event. But that conversation would definitely begin 2 quarters before, at the very latest. Having done a few double 11s, like I actually honestly probably would go like 3 quarters. I'd start thinking about it 3 quarters before, because there's such pivotal e-commerce moments in your calendar, and then yeah, they're really exciting. But they do require that degree of foresight and forethought.
I just had an interesting comment come through, actually on that, which is during the actual day of 11/11. Do you just sort of sit there and hope for the best, or you're actively doing things on the day that can change the needle and move the dial?
I mean, honestly, like you get to kind of early October when the preheat for 11/11 starts, and it's done. There's nothing more you can do. So hence why you do have to be planning in advance. So there's a bit of fingers crossing, to be honest with you, on the day of. Yeah, so preparation is key. But you know, as I've mentioned, in terms of those category specific managers, they have a wealth of resources, and they really do plug in, and they're really vested in getting brands over the line on 11/11. So just leverage those resources. You know, that they'll assist. They've certainly with us. They've assisted with stock planning to new product launches. For, you know, we're taking like ferroglobin and iron-based product in quite heavily on 11/11 this year. And it's, yeah, the resources are there for brands who seek them out.
Zarina, what should we all be looking to this year in 11/11 to get a bit of inspiration?
Oh, couldn't possibly reveal any of the secrets that we've got planned.
Damn, it was worth a try, wasn't it?
It was worth a try, but no doubt with this being our 12th Double 11, it will be exciting and not be the biggest yet, as Jack said last week. But I think, something that I'd like to highlight that the Vitabiotics team have really done, and it struck me from the day that we first met, that Benji and the senior team, is that it was clear that China was a priority to them. It was clear that this was the market they really wanted to go for. And their appointment of Benji as the director of China really highlighted that. But what they all did, regardless of the fact that they are the UK's #1 vitamins company, they've had great success here, is that they were really, really humble about what they needed to do in China. We went up there with a set of data and figures and looked at what their business was now, and we identified some opportunities for them. And they went back to the fundamentals of commerce, of, what stock have we got? How are we pricing it? What does our content look like? And all of those are really good grounding points before you get to any of the craziness of Double 11. Without having those basics in place, there's no point going for the rest, because like Benji said, by the time you get to October, it's already too late. You've got to get those fundamentals in place. So really, having that, being humble and making China a priority are the things that will enable you to take advantage of the exciting things that will happen on Double 11. So no doubt we're going to see more gamification, more brand collaborations, lots more exciting live streams, and some big numbers too.
David Lloyd, finally, you've helped countless brands to be successful in China. What would you say is the single thing, if there is a single thing, or most important thing that anybody watching this thinking, this has given me some inspiration, I'm going to give it a go, I'm going to persuade my management team that this is an opportunity that we really can't ignore. What do you think the key piece of advice you can give them would be?
Gosh, just one. I need to find a way of making one answer multi answers. Right?
Become a politician. You can do that very easily.
Exactly. So I think obviously the first step is call Zarina, right? And or call me. But I think the honest answer, do your preparation. Really try and learn about the market. If we weren't in a situation where so few of us can travel, I would say go there, spend time there. If you can't do that, then get to know a trusted partner in the market and try and learn from them. Speak to people like Benji, who can tell you about operating in the market. But I would say really prepare and really get to know the market, because the opportunity is so big and is so exciting that you have to treat it as big and exciting. And that means you have to understand it differently. You have to prepare for it. Benji said he prepares 9 months in advance for Double 11. We're all surprised. Why should we be surprised? Retailers prepare 9 months in advance for Christmas. Double 11 could be bigger than Christmas for most global brands, actually. So of course you should prepare 9 months in advance. So what I would say is, do your homework, really prepare, but get to know China and Chinese consumers. And then the final thing I would say in this long answer in one breath is, having built this amazing plan, having done all of that homework and having really prepared, then prepare to be really flexible, because everything's going to change a little bit. And you need to have a very, very flexible plan that can adapt to China and adapt to the speed of China. But of course, then call Zarina.
Well, Benji Lam, Zarina Kanji, David Lloyd, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this second of our 3 series webinars. Please don't forget to join us next Wednesday, when we're going to take a big dive into live streaming, key opinion leaders. At the end of that, you really will understand how it works. And we are also going to try and do a live stream into China so that we can all watch how it works. But for today, thank you all very much indeed for joining us. We very much appreciate your time. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.